A teen is being let go for supporting Elon Musk. Next day he finds fortune. Pack your things. You're done here. The words hit like a gut punch. For a moment, it didn't register. Had he really just been fired? Over something so ridiculous? Ethan stood frozen, his name tag still pinned to his cheap polyester uniform, his hands gripping the edges of the counter as if steadying himself. His manager, Rick, a middle-aged man with thinning hair and a permanent scowl, crossed his arms, looking at him like he was something stuck to the bottom of his shoe. I don't understand, Ethan stammered, glancing around the store. Customers moved through the aisles, oblivious. His co-workers, some pretending not to hear, others smirking, stood watching from behind the registers. Rick scoffed. "Oh, come on, kid. Don't play dumb. We don't need your kind of thinking around here." Ethan blinked. "My kind of thinking?" Rick smirked. "Yeah, your worship the billionaire nonsense. You think Elon Musk is some genius visionary, right? That he's changing the world? Guess what, genius? He's just another rich guy who doesn't give a damn about you." Ethan's stomach twisted. It had started as just another workday, minding his own business at the electronics counter, chatting with a customer who had asked for recommendations. They'd been discussing EVs when Ethan had mentioned Tesla, and naturally, the conversation had drifted to Musk. The customer had asked if he thought Musk was good for the world. Ethan, always one to defend what he believed in, had answered honestly. "He's doing things no one else is willing to do," he had said. SpaceX, Neuralink, the boring company, he's pushing technology forward. People laughed at Tesla in the beginning, and now every car company is scrambling to catch up. It's about vision, about thinking ahead. Rick had been eavesdropping. Ethan hadn't even noticed at first, not until the man started loudly mocking him from behind the counter. "Oh yeah, real great guy," Rick had said, rolling his eyes. "Totally not exploiting workers or doing dumb Twitter stunts while the world burns. Kid, you're young, so let me give you some advice. Idolizing billionaires is pathetic." Ethan had gritted his teeth but held his ground. "It's not about idolizing. It's about innovation. Every major step in history happened because someone took risks. I respect that." Rick had laughed in his face. "Respect? How about respecting reality? You're fired, kid." And now, here he was. Humiliated. He swallowed the lump in his throat. "So, that's it? I'm fired because I like Musk." Rick leaned in, voice dripping with condescension. "You're fired because you're a liability. Customers don't want to hear some brainwashed Musk fanboy preaching about how we should all worship the tech overlords. Now get out." Ethan's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to argue, to fight back, but what was the point? He needed this job. His parents had already been on his case about not taking life seriously, and getting fired from a retail job was only going to confirm their suspicions that he was wasting his potential. Swallowing his pride, he ripped off the name tag, threw it onto the counter, and turned toward the exit. As he walked past his coworkers, he caught the sneers, the whispers. "Maybe Elon will come save him. Good luck, space boy. What a loser." He kept walking. Outside, the evening air felt colder than it should have. He exhaled, pulling his hoodie tighter around himself as he took out his phone. His fingers hovered over the screen. Who could he text? His parents? They'd just say, "We told you so." His friends? Not likely. Most of them didn't even care about this stuff. They were more concerned with weekend plans and group chats filled with memes. Instead, he opened Twitter. "Fired today for supporting Musk. Guess innovation isn't welcome in retail. Hashtag think big." He hesitated before posting it. Would anyone care? Would it just invite more ridicule? Screw it. He hit send. Then, stuffing his phone into his pocket, he started walking. The walk home was long, but it gave him time to think. His parents were going to be pissed. Not just because he lost his job, but because they already thought his obsession with Elon Musk was a waste of time. His dad, a blue-collar worker who had spent his life at the same company, believed in stability over ambition. Work a good job, climb the ladder, retire with a pension was his motto. His mom was the same. She worked in HR and saw the corporate side of things. To them, Musk was just another billionaire playing with Twitter and space rockets while real people struggled. Ethan knew they wouldn't understand. By the time he reached his house, his phone was buzzing. He pulled it out, his tweet was blowing up. Hundreds of likes. Dozens of comments. Some were supportive. Retail jobs are trash anyway. You'll do better. Musk fans stick together. Keep pushing, do. Others, not so much. LMAO, imagine losing your job because of Elon Musk. Good, we don't need another Musk cultist. He sighed and pocketed his phone. This wasn't going to change anything. It wasn't like Musk himself was going to notice or care. When he opened the front door, his mom was already in the kitchen, unloading groceries. "You're home early," she said, not looking up. Ethan stood in the doorway, heart pounding. "Yeah, I got fired." The clatter of a dropped can echoed through the kitchen. His mom slowly turned, eyes narrowing. "You what?" He swallowed. "I got fired. Over something stupid." She crossed her arms. "And what exactly was stupid about it?" He shifted on his feet. They got into a conversation with a customer. About Tesla. Rick overheard and didn't like what I was saying. He fired me for it. His mom's face hardened. "You lost your job because you couldn't keep your mouth shut about Elon Musk?" "It's not like that," Ethan snapped. "I wasn't preaching, I was just..." "It doesn't matter," she cut in. "You had a job, and you lost it over some tech billionaire who doesn't even know you exist." Ethan clenched his jaw. "It wasn't just about that." His mom scoffed. "Oh really? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you threw away a paycheck for a guy who doesn't care about you." "Mom, that job was dead-end anyway." "And what, you think Musk is going to come to your rescue?" Her words stung more than he wanted to admit. She sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose. "You need to get serious, Ethan. This Musk obsession, it's not going to pay your bills. It's time to grow up." Ethan didn't respond. What was the point? His mom shook her head and turned back to the groceries. "Your father is going to lose it when he hears about this." Ethan turned on his heel and stormed up the stairs, slamming the door behind him. Sitting on his bed, he stared at the glowing Tesla logo on his wall. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was stupid. Maybe he should just stop caring about the big picture and focus on getting some boring job that didn't inspire him. But deep down, something told him, this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. Ethan lay on his bed, staring at the ceiling. His phone buzzed on his nightstand, but he ignored it. He already knew what it was. More Twitter notifications, more arguments, more people either supporting him or tearing him down. He sighed, rolling onto his side. His room, normally his sanctuary, felt smaller than ever. The Tesla posters, the stack of books on innovation, the blueprint sketches he had drawn for fun, it all seemed so pointless. His mom's words echoed in his head. "It's time to grow up." Was she right? Had he been wasting his time? He picked up his phone and scrolled through his notifications. His tweet was still going viral. Over 5,000 likes now. And then he saw it. A DM request from someone with a verified checkmark. He sat up. His heart pounded as he tapped the notification. At Greg Henderson's please. "Hey, saw your post. Love your energy. What are you working on these days?" Ethan's brain short-circuited for a moment. Greg Henderson was a well-known venture capitalist, one of the guys who had invested early in Tesla and SpaceX. He wasn't just some Twitter random. This guy had connections. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He had nothing to lose. "Hey Greg, appreciate you reaching out. Right now, mostly job hunting after getting fired. But I've always been obsessed with tech, AI, and the future of automation. I've got some ideas, but nothing concrete." He hit send and immediately regretted it. He sounded like an amateur, a nobody. Why would a guy like Greg even care? But 2 minutes later, Greg replied. "Interesting. I'm involved in a new project, an AI-driven automation startup. We're looking for young minds who think differently. If you're open to it, let's talk." No pressure. Ethan's hands trembled. Was this real? He quickly typed back. "Absolutely. I'd love to hear more. When's a good time?" Greg responded almost instantly. "Tomorrow. Video call. 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Here's my email, send me your number and we'll set it up." Ethan exhaled sharply, his heart hammering in his chest. This wasn't just some internet hype. This was real. The next morning, Ethan barely touched his breakfast. His dad had already heard the news from his mom and wasn't even talking to him. The disappointment in his face was worse than anything he could have said out loud. "Good luck finding something else," his dad muttered as he walked past him. Ethan clenched his jaw but didn't respond. "I'll prove them wrong." By 1:50 p.m., he was sitting at his desk, staring at his laptop screen, refreshing his inbox every 5 seconds, waiting for the call invite. At exactly 2 p.m., his phone buzzed with a Zoom link. He clicked it. The screen loaded. A man appeared, mid-40s, sharp-dressed, sitting in a sleek office with a Tesla Cybertruck poster in the background. "Ethan, good to meet you," Greg said, smiling. "I read through your Twitter thread. You think big, I like that." Ethan swallowed. I appreciate that." Greg leaned forward. "Let me be blunt. We're working on a next-gen AI project, something that could integrate with autonomous vehicles and smart cities. It's early, but we need young people who understand Musk's vision and aren't afraid to think ahead. Your post caught my attention because you're not just a fan, you get it?" Ethan's pulse pounded in his ears. I think Musk is pushing humanity forward, and I want to be part of that. I don't have a degree or experience." Greg waved a hand. "Forget degrees. We want passion and ideas. Experience can be built. What matters is mindset. Tell me, if you could build anything, what would it be?" Ethan blinked. His mind raced. He thought about all the things he had imagined. What if AI could optimize traffic flow automatically? What if smart cities could predict human behavior and adjust resources instantly? He took a deep breath. "I'd create an AI-powered self-learning urban system, something that can adapt in real time, reduce accidents, optimize energy, help autonomous vehicles communicate with each other." Greg grinned. "Now that's interesting. Listen, we're putting together a team for an incubator project. If you're in, we'll bring you on as an apprentice researcher, paid, of course. You'd be working with some of the smartest minds in AI. What do you think?" Ethan's breath caught. A real opportunity. A shot at something bigger. "Yes," he said instantly. "I'm in." Greg nodded. "I'll send over the NDA and details. Welcome to the future." The screen went dark. Ethan sat there in stunned silence. Yesterday, he was fired from a dead-end retail job. Today, he was working on the future of AI. His phone buzzed again, a contract email from Greg's assistant. This wasn't a dream. It was real. That night, Ethan lay awake, staring at the ceiling, grinning. For the first time in weeks, he felt unstoppable. But he knew this was just the beginning. He had something to prove. The next few days were a blur. Greg connected him with the team, a mix of engineers, software developers, and ex-Tesla employees who had moved into AI research. The company was called Neurogrid, and they were building a next-gen AI urban planning system, a project that could redefine how cities functioned. Ethan soaked in everything. The work was challenging, but it felt like play. He was designing early AI models, feeding data sets, learning from some of the best minds in tech. And then, something crazy happened. Greg messaged him out of the blue. "Want to come to LA next week? We're pitching to some investors. You should be there." Ethan nearly dropped his phone. Fly to LA? Be in the same room as real investors? He had never even left his state before. But this was his shot. He typed back, "I'm in." 2 days later, Ethan stood at the airport, holding a first-class ticket to Los Angeles. First class. He had never even been on a plane before. Now, he was flying first class, courtesy of Neurogrid. The moment he stepped onto the plane, he knew everything had changed. The flight attendants treated him like royalty, offering drinks, snacks. He sat in a plush leather seat that reclined with the press of a button. As the plane took off, he stared out the window, watching the city shrink below him. Less than a week ago, he was unemployed. He was heading to LA to meet investors. And he wasn't just some kid anymore. He was part of something big, something that could change the world. Ethan stepped off the plane into the warm Los Angeles air, his heart pounding in his chest. The moment felt surreal. He was just a kid who got fired from a retail job for supporting Elon Musk. And now he was about to meet with real investors. It was the kind of thing that happened in movies, not real life. His phone buzzed. A message from Greg. Cars waiting outside. Black Tesla Model X, welcome to LA, kid. Ethan swallowed hard. He followed the signs to the pickup area, where a sleek, glossy black Tesla Model X sat waiting. The driver, a well-dressed man with sunglasses, stepped out and opened the door for him. "Mr. Carter?" the driver asked. Ethan hesitated. That was the first time anyone had called him Mr. Carter. He nodded. Yeah. Welcome to Los Angeles. Hop in." Ethan slid into the passenger seat, running his fingers along the futuristic interior. The doors closed with a soft hum, and before he knew it, they were gliding through the streets of LA, past towering skyscrapers and sleek office buildings. He tried to play it cool, but inside, he was freaking out. This was happening. This was real. The Tesla pulled up to a high-rise office building in downtown LA. The driver stepped out and opened Ethan's door. "This is it," the man said with a nod. Ethan took a deep breath, grabbed his backpack, and walked into the building. Inside, the lobby was all glass and steel, modern and intimidating. A receptionist greeted him with a polished smile. "Mr. Carter? Greg is expecting you. Please take the elevator to the 25th floor." Ethan stepped into the elevator, pressed the button, and watched the numbers climb. His heart pounded. When the doors opened, he stepped into a sleek conference room where Greg was waiting, along with several other well-dressed people. "Ethan, good to see you," Greg said, shaking his hand. Ethan tried to keep his voice steady. "Thanks for having me." Greg gestured toward the long glass table. "Come on, take a seat. Investors will be here soon. You ready for this?" Ethan swallowed. Was he? Not really. But he wasn't about to back down. "Yeah," he said, forcing confidence into his voice. "I'm ready." The investors arrived one by one, men and women in expensive suits, carrying tablets and sleek notebooks. Some looked curious, others skeptical. Greg kicked off the meeting, introducing Neurogrid and its vision for AI-powered urban optimization. Ethan sat, listening intently, trying to absorb every word. Then Greg turned to him. "Ethan, why don't you tell them what excites you most about this project?" Ethan's stomach clenched. He hadn't expected to be put on the spot. All eyes turned to him. For a moment he panicked. Then, something clicked. He wasn't here by accident. He belonged here. He took a breath and leaned forward. "Look, I know I'm young. I don't have a degree or a fancy background. But what I do have is vision. The future of AI isn't about automation. It's about intelligence that adapts. Cities today are stagnant. They don't learn, they don't evolve. Neurogrid is the first step toward a world where infrastructure reacts in real time, optimizing traffic, reducing accidents, and making cities more efficient." The investors were silent, watching him. Ethan felt his confidence build. "I got fired last week for talking about Elon Musk," he said, giving a half smile. "But I still stand by what I said. The world moves forward because of people who take risks. Neurogrid is that risk. And I believe in it." Silence. Then, one of the investors leaned back, nodding. "I like him," she said, glancing at Greg. Greg smirked. "Told you he had potential?" Another investor flipped through a packet of documents. "All right, I want to hear more about your AI scalability plans." The meeting shifted into technical discussions, but Ethan could barely contain his excitement. He had done it. He had proven himself. After the meeting, Greg clapped a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You did good, kid." Ethan grinned. "Really? Really? That investor? She just agreed to put in $2 million in seed funding." Ethan's breath caught. $2 million? For a moment, he couldn't speak. "Wait, does this mean?" Greg laughed. "Yeah. It means Neurogrid is officially in business." Ethan let out a stunned laugh. 1 week ago, he was unemployed. But he was part of a multi-million-dollar AI startup. That night, Ethan sat in his luxury hotel suite, staring out at the Los Angeles skyline. He was still trying to process it all. His phone buzzed. A text from his mom. Your dad and I saw the article about you. Is this real?" He exhaled. "The article? Greg had sent out a press release about the funding, and tech sites had picked up the story. The headline? Fired for supporting Musk. Team now part of $2 million AI startup. Ethan typed back, "Me? Yeah, it's real." A long pause. "We're proud of you." Ethan smiled. His whole life, people had told him to be realistic, to play it safe. But he had taken a risk, and it had paid off. But deep down he knew, this was only the beginning. Ethan barely slept that night. Every time he closed his eyes, his mind buzzed with thoughts of what had just happened. A week ago, he was a broke teenager with no job, mocked for supporting Elon Musk. He was part of a $2 million funded startup, sitting in a luxury hotel suite in Los Angeles, staring out at a view most people only saw in movies. His phone buzzed again. This time, it was a Twitter notification. He unlocked the screen and nearly dropped the phone. At Elon Musk, great vision. Cities should be intelligent, not just connected. Keep pushing forward, Ethan. Ethan's heart stopped. He reread the tweet 3 times. Elon. Freaking. Tweeted. About him. His hands shook as he refreshed the screen. His tweet, the one about getting fired, had exploded overnight. 500,000 likes. 200,000 retweets. His inbox was flooded. Messages from strangers, job offers, tech companies asking if he wanted to collaborate. Even his old classmates, the ones who used to call him a nerd for being obsessed with Musk, were now messaging him. "Bro, saw Musk tweeted about you. That's insane. Yo, remember me from high school? Congrats, man. Dude, you made it. When are you hiring?" Ethan couldn't stop grinning. 1 week ago, these same people had mocked him. Now they were begging to be noticed. Life changed fast. And he wasn't done yet. The next morning, Greg picked him up in a Tesla Roadster. "Big day," Greg said as Ethan slid into the passenger seat. "We're heading to the new office space. Gotta start setting up for the team." Ethan exhaled, still overwhelmed. "I still can't believe this is happening." Greg laughed, accelerating smoothly onto the highway. "Believe it? This is what happens when you think big." Ethan stared out the window, the city skyline reflecting on the car's glass roof. He knew Greg was right. People always mocked visionaries. Until those visionaries changed the world. The new office space was in Silicon Beach, the tech hub of Los Angeles. When Ethan walked in, it felt like stepping into the future. Floor-to-ceiling windows, smart glass walls, rows of desks with high-end computers. It wasn't just an office. It was a statement. This was where disruptors built the next big thing. Greg turned to him. "You ready to get to work?" Ethan grinned. "Absolutely." The next few weeks were a blur of 16-hour workdays. Ethan worked harder than he ever had in his life. The Neurogrid team grew fast. Developers, AI engineers, and urban planners joined the project. Some of them had left jobs at Tesla, Google, and Apple to work with them. Ethan wasn't just a kid in a startup. He was leading part of the AI optimization team. It didn't matter that he had no degree. What mattered was that he had ideas. Real, scalable ideas. And people were finally listening. One night, after a 14-hour coding session, Ethan grabbed his phone and checked his bank account. When he saw the number, he nearly choked on his energy drink. $250,000. His first official paycheck. $250,000. His hands trembled. He had never even seen that much money in his life. A week ago, he was stressing over rent. Now, he could buy his parents a house. He took a shaky breath and dialed his mom's number. She picked up after 2 rings. "Ethan?" "Hey, Mom," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. I wanted to send you something." Silence. Then his mom's voice softened. "Ethan, what are you talking about?" He opened his banking app, tapped the transfer button, and sent $50,000 to her account. 5 seconds later, he heard her gasp. "Ethan, what did you just do?" "Check your account," he said, smiling. A long pause. "But, honey, this can't be real." "It's real, Mom," Ethan said, his voice thick with emotion. "I told you I'd prove it to you." Silence. Then he heard his mom sniffling. His dad's voice came through the background. "What's going on?" His mom barely got the words out. Ethan just sent us $50,000? His dad grabbed the phone. Son, what is this? Ethan grinned. Just a small thank you. For believing in me. Well, eventually. His dad was quiet for a long moment. I'm proud of you, son. Ethan felt a lump in his throat. This moment? This was better than any paycheck. But Ethan wasn't done. He had one more stop to make. The next morning, he rented a Tesla Model S Plaid and drove to his old job. The same store where Rick had fired him in front of everyone. The moment he stepped inside, heads turned. Employees whispered. A few of his old coworkers stared at him, eyes wide. He walked right up to the counter. Rick was standing there, barking orders at a new cashier. When he turned and saw Ethan, his face froze. Ethan smiled. Hey, Rick. Rick swallowed. What do you want? Ethan pulled out his phone, scrolling until he found the article. He turned the screen so Rick could see it. Fired for supporting Musk. Team now part of $2 million AI startup. Rick's face turned ghost white. Ethan smirked. Remember when you said Musk wouldn't care about me? Rick didn't answer. His jaw was clenched so tight it looked like he might snap a tooth. Ethan leaned in. Turns out you were wrong. Then, just to rub it in, he pulled out a stack of crisp $100 bills and set them on the counter. Let's see. I think I'll buy out your entire electronics section. Rick's eye twitched. You're joking? Ethan grinned. Nope. I'll take everything. Rick's lips thinned, but he had no choice. He rang up the total. $12,452. Ethan pulled out a black Amex card and slid it across the counter. The transaction approved. Ethan grabbed the receipt. Oh, and Rick? Rick looked up, scowling. Ethan smiled. You're fired. Rick's eyes bulged. What? You can't. I just bought the store's electronics inventory, Ethan said, stuffing the receipt in his pocket. And guess what? I have enough money to buy the whole company if I wanted to. You think corporate cares about you more than me? Rick looked like he wanted to explode. Ethan clapped him on the shoulder. Have a great day, man. Then he turned and walked out to his brand new Tesla. As he pulled away, he could see Rick through the glass doors, still standing there. Still stuck. Ethan? He was moving forward. Faster than anyone ever expected. Ethan drove through the streets of Los Angeles, his heart still racing from his confrontation with Rick. It had been satisfying, more than satisfying. The man who had humiliated him, who had laughed in his face, had just been put in his place. But as the adrenaline faded, a new thought settled in. This wasn't just about proving people wrong anymore. This was about building something bigger. As he drove back toward the Neurogrid office, his phone buzzed on the dashboard. It was Greg. Greg, big meeting tomorrow. Potential Series A investors. Be ready. Series A. That meant millions more in funding. Ethan took a deep breath. This was happening fast, but he wouldn't let himself be overwhelmed. This was exactly what he wanted. The next morning, Ethan walked into the office and felt the energy shift. The entire team was there, developers, engineers, planners, all preparing for the investor pitch. Greg pulled him aside. You've got a speaking slot today, Greg said. Ethan blinked. Wait, what? These investors need to see that our team is young, innovative, and fearless. You're part of that story, Ethan. His pulse quickened. This wasn't just a meeting. This was the biggest moment of his career. He swallowed hard. All right, I'm in. The investors arrived in black SUVs, wearing expensive suits and carrying sleek iPads. Ethan sat at the long conference table, trying to keep his hands from shaking. Greg led the presentation, explaining Neurogrid's AI system. The investors nodded, asking questions, taking notes. Then Greg turned to Ethan. I want you to hear from someone who embodies the future of this company, Greg said. Ethan, take it away. Ethan's heart pounded as he stood up. All eyes were on him. He took a deep breath. Neurogrid isn't just about AI, he began. It's about creating a world that adapts. Right now, cities react too late. Traffic builds up, accidents happen, resources are wasted. But what if a city could think ahead? What if your car, the roads, and the traffic systems could communicate seamlessly? The investors listened. Encouraged, Ethan continued. I got fired from a retail job for talking about innovation. People laughed at me for supporting Musk. They thought thinking big was a joke. He paused, scanning the room. But they aren't laughing anymore. A murmur spread across the table. One of the investors smirked. Ethan pressed on. This company represents the future. You're not just investing in AI. You're investing in the people who refuse to think small. Silence. Then, one of the investors leaned forward. I like him, she said, glancing at Greg. Greg grinned. Told you? The investor nodded. Let's talk numbers. Ethan exhaled, sinking into his chair as Greg took over. He had done it again. Later that evening, Greg pulled Ethan aside, grinning. 3 investors just verbally committed, Greg said. We're looking at a $20 million Series A round. Ethan's mind exploded. $20 million. His voice came out shaky. Holy. Greg laughed. Yeah. Holy shit is right. Ethan ran a hand through his hair. This is really happening. Greg clapped him on the back. Welcome to the big leagues, kid. That night, Ethan stood on the rooftop of his apartment building, staring at the city skyline. He had come so far in just a few weeks. But deep down he knew. This was only the beginning. His phone buzzed. Another message. But this one made his stomach drop. It was from Rick. Rick, we need to talk. It's important. Ethan stared at the message. Why the hell would Rick be reaching out to him now? He hesitated before typing back. Ethan, about what? Rick's response came fast. Rick, just meet me. Tomorrow. It's serious. Ethan frowned. Something felt off. The next day, Ethan walked into the cafe where Rick had asked to meet. Rick was already there, looking rough, his hair disheveled, his face tense. Ethan sat across from him, arms crossed. All right, what's this about? Rick sighed, rubbing his temples. Look, I know we haven't exactly been on great terms, Rick muttered. Ethan raised an eyebrow. Understatement of the year. Rick exhaled. Fine. I was a jerk to you. I need your help. Ethan stared at him. Excuse me? Rick leaned forward, lowering his voice. Corporate is downsizing. The store is getting shut down. Everyone's losing their jobs, including me. Ethan tilted his head. And this concerns me because? Rick looked desperate. I need a job, Ethan. Ethan blinked. The same guy who laughed in his face was now asking him for help. The irony was so thick, it was almost funny. Rick swallowed. I know I treated you like crap. I was wrong. But I've got a family, man. A mortgage. I don't know what to do. For the first time, Ethan saw something other than arrogance in Rick's eyes. He saw fear. Real fear. Ethan exhaled, rubbing his chin. You know, Rick, he said slowly, a few weeks ago, you fired me without a second thought. You laughed at me, mocked my ambitions. And now, here we are. Rick looked down. I know. Ethan studied him for a long moment. Finally, he made a decision. Look, Ethan said, I'm not just going to hand you a job, but I can introduce you to some people. If you're serious about starting over, I'll point you in the right direction. Rick's eyes widened. You do that? Ethan nodded. But this time, you respect the people around you. No more looking down on people just because they think differently than you. Rick swallowed hard and nodded. I get it. And, thank you. Ethan stood. Don't thank me yet. Just don't screw this up. As he walked out of the cafe, he exhaled deeply. This was the difference between winners and losers. Losers held onto their pride until it destroyed them. Winners? They moved forward. And Ethan had no plans of looking back. Ethan left the cafe and stepped onto the bustling sidewalk, the weight of the conversation still lingering in his mind. A few weeks ago, Rick had been on top, arrogant, untouchable, convinced he was the smartest guy in the room. Now he was desperate. Life had a way of flipping the script when you least expected it. Ethan exhaled and checked his phone. 5 missed calls from Greg. His stomach tightened. That couldn't be good. He quickly called back. Greg answered on the first ring. Where the hell have you been? Ethan frowned. What's going on? Bad news, Greg said, his voice tense. Someone leaked our investor pitch? Ethan's heart dropped. What? It's all over Twitter. Some tech influencers are already tearing us apart, saying Neurogrid is overpromising and too ambitious. The investors are nervous. Ethan felt a wave of nausea. This was bad. If they lost investor confidence, they could lose the entire $20 million deal. Who leaked it? Ethan asked, trying to stay calm. We don't know yet, Greg said, but we need to do damage control. Fast. Ethan rushed to the office, his mind racing. When he arrived, the entire team was in panic mode. Developers were frantically scrubbing the internet, trying to contain the leak. Greg was pacing back and forth, his phone glued to his ear. The energy in the room was chaotic. Ethan pulled up Twitter and saw the storm for himself. A screenshot of their pitch deck had gone viral, with people dissecting their plans, calling them unrealistic. This is just AI vaporware. No way this tech works at scale. Another overhyped startup that'll crash in a year. Ethan clenched his fists. These people didn't get it. They didn't understand the vision. He turned to Greg. We need to flip the narrative. Greg raised an eyebrow. How? Ethan took a deep breath. We go public. We own the story before it owns us. An hour later, Ethan went live on Twitter. A simple video message. No scripts. No corporate jargon. Just him, looking directly into the camera. Hey everyone. You've probably seen the leaked pitch. So let's talk about it. He exhaled, keeping his tone calm but confident. Neurogrid isn't about hype. It's about fixing real problems. Our cities are outdated. Traffic congestion, energy waste, inefficiency. It's a mess. But AI can change that. And yeah, people are skeptical. They should be. Innovation is always met with doubt. He leaned forward. But here's the thing. Every major breakthrough started with people saying it was impossible. Tesla, SpaceX, even the internet. People laughed at them too. He paused, letting his words sink in. So, to anyone doubting us, good. It means we're onto something big. The video ended. Within minutes, the responses started flooding in. The narrative shifted. Instead of tearing them down, people started rallying behind them. Damn, this kid is smart. Neurogrid is actually solving real problems. I was skeptical, but now I want to see them succeed. Even some big-name investors retweeted it, saying they respected the transparency. Greg stared at the screen, shaking his head in disbelief. Holy shit, he muttered. You just saved this company. Ethan exhaled. Crisis averted. But the battle wasn't over. It was just beginning. A week later, the funding officially closed. $20 million secured. Ethan sat at his desk, staring at the email confirmation, his hands slightly shaking. This was real. The investors hadn't backed out. If anything, the Twitter storm had solidified their confidence. Greg knocked on his office door. You're gonna want to see this, he said, grinning. Ethan followed him to the conference room. A live video feed was playing on the big screen. A Tesla executive was on stage at a tech conference, and he was talking about Neurogrid. AI-driven smart cities are the future. Companies like Neurogrid are pushing boundaries in ways that remind me of Tesla's early days. Ethan's jaw dropped. Greg smirked. Think Musk is watching? Ethan exhaled. I don't know, but if he is, he's about to see what we're really capable of. Months passed. Neurogrid exploded. They expanded their team, launched pilot projects in 3 major cities, and were even in talks with Tesla's AI division. Ethan was no longer just some kid with a vision. He was the face of one of the fastest-growing AI startups in the world. But even as things skyrocketed, he never forgot where he started. One day, he visited his parents. His mom hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. His dad shook his hand. I was wrong about you, his dad admitted. You're not just dreaming. You're actually changing the world. Ethan smiled. That meant more than any paycheck. And then one evening it happened. A notification popped up on his phone. He nearly stopped breathing when he read it. At Elon Musk replied to your tweet. His hands shook as he opened it. Musk's reply was simple. We should talk. Ethan stared at the screen, his heart pounding. This was it. The moment he had been waiting for his entire life. He took a deep breath, then typed his reply. Name the time and place. I'll be there. His fingers hovered over the send button. He pressed it. And just like that, the next chapter of his story began. Ethan stared at his phone, his heart pounding in his chest. "We should talk," Elon Musk had actually replied. For a moment he sat there, frozen. His mind struggled to process the reality of it. Then, without hesitation, he typed back, "Name the time and place. I'll be there." He hit send. And now, all he could do was wait. Hours passed. Ethan checked his phone at least 100 times. Every notification made his stomach lurch. Then, finally, his screen lit up. Elon Musk DM received. Ethan's hands shook as he opened it. Tesla HQ, Palo Alto. Tomorrow, 3 p.m. Ask for me at reception. Ethan's brain short-circuited. Tomorrow? This was really happening. He jumped to his feet, scrambling to call Greg. "Dude," he replied. Ethan blurted out the moment Greg answered. Greg chuckled. "Who replied?" Ethan could barely breathe. "He wants to meet. Tomorrow. At Tesla HQ." Greg was silent for a second. "Holy shit. Yeah," Ethan said, running a hand through his hair. "This is insane." Greg exhaled. "All right, listen up. This is huge, but you need to be ready. Musk isn't just going to chat for fun. He's probably interested in neurogrid or wants to test you." Ethan nodded, pacing the room. "I need to prepare. Research everything. Have an answer for whatever he asks." Greg laughed. "You sound like you're getting ready for a boss fight." Ethan smirked. "In a way, I am." The next morning, Ethan boarded a private jet to Palo Alto, courtesy of Neurogrid. The reality of his meteoric rise hit him as he looked out the window. A few months ago, he was working a minimum wage job. But he was flying first class to meet Elon Musk. Life moved fast. When he arrived at Tesla's headquarters, he felt the weight of history around him. This was where some of the greatest innovations in the world were born. He took a deep breath and walked inside. The receptionist looked up. "Can I help you?" Ethan swallowed. I have a meeting with Elon Musk." She barely reacted, just nodded and typed something on her computer. "He's expecting you. Take the elevator to the top floor." Ethan stepped into the sleek, futuristic elevator, his heart pounding. With a soft chime, the doors slid open. And there he was, Elon, freaking, standing by the window, gazing out at the city, hands in his pockets. He turned when he heard Ethan step in. "The AI kid," Musk said with a smirk. Ethan gulped. That's me." Musk gestured to the chair across from his desk. "Sit." Ethan obeyed, trying to keep his cool. Musk studied him for a moment, then leaned forward. "I like people who think big," Musk said. "People who ignore the noise and just build." Ethan nodded. "That's exactly what I want to do." Musk tapped his fingers on the desk. "Neurogrid is interesting. But tell me, what's your real vision?" Ethan took a breath. This was it. If AI can optimize cities, we can reduce accidents, save lives, and improve energy efficiency. "But that's just the beginning," Ethan said, gaining confidence. "I want AI to integrate seamlessly into every system we use. Transportation, energy grids, even space exploration." Musk raised an eyebrow. "Space?" Ethan leaned forward. "Imagine an AI that learns planetary conditions in real time. One that can predict the best Mars colony locations, optimize life support, and adapt to extreme environments." Musk's eyes lit up. "Interesting." Ethan felt a rush of adrenaline. He had his attention. Musk nodded slowly. "Neurogrid is moving fast." "I like that. But moving fast means competition. And competition means war." Ethan exhaled. "I'm ready for it." Musk smirked. "We'll see." He leaned back. "I want to keep an eye on you. Send me weekly updates. If you impress me, maybe we work together down the line." Ethan's heart nearly stopped. Elon Musk was offering a potential partnership. He barely kept his voice steady. "I won't let you down." Musk grinned. "Good." He stood, signaling the meeting was over. "Go build something great." Ethan stood, shook his hand, and walked out. His legs felt like jelly. But in his chest, a fire burned. He wasn't just a kid in a startup anymore. He was on Musk's radar. And that meant the real game was about to begin. Ethan stepped out of Tesla's headquarters into the California sun, his mind spinning. The meeting with Musk had gone better than he could have imagined. Not only was Musk watching him now, he was expecting updates. That meant one thing: failure wasn't an option. As he slid into the back seat of the Tesla Model X waiting to take him to the airport, his phone buzzed. A message from Greg. "Greg, how did it go?" Ethan took a deep breath before replying. "Ethan, Musk wants updates. He's watching us." 3 dots appeared instantly. "Greg, holy shit." Ethan smirked. Yeah. Holy shit was right. The rise of a competitor. The moment Ethan landed back in LA, he went straight to the office. But the moment he stepped inside, he knew something was wrong. The atmosphere was tense. People huddled in groups, whispering. Developers looked stressed. Greg was waiting for him near the entrance, arms crossed. "We've got a problem," he said. Ethan's stomach tightened. "What kind of problem?" Greg exhaled and pulled out his phone. "Check this out." He handed Ethan his phone, where a news article was pulled up. Breaking: new AI startup Cognos raises $30 million to challenge Neurogrid in smart city tech. Ethan's blood ran cold. Cognos, a brand new AI company backed by Silicon Valley elites. They had just raised $30 million, more than Neurogrid's $20 million funding. But that wasn't the worst part. Ethan scrolled down and froze. The CEO of Cognos? Richard Tate, a former executive from Tesla's AI division. Ethan looked at Greg. "You're telling me a former Tesla guy just started a direct competitor, right after Musk took interest in us?" Greg nodded grimly. "Yep. And investors are paying attention." Ethan clenched his jaw. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a power move. Cognos was trying to crush them before they could even take off. Ethan tightened his grip on the phone. "Then we hit back. Corporate warfare begins." The next few weeks were brutal. Cognos wasn't just a competitor, they were actively trying to destroy Neurogrid. They released negative press, calling Neurogrid's AI untested and unproven. They poached engineers from smaller startups, trying to build a superior team. And worst of all, they started reaching out to Neurogrid's investors, trying to convince them to pull their money. Ethan was furious. Greg slammed his laptop shut after another investor email. "They're trying to starve us out before we even launch." Ethan exhaled sharply. "Then we need to move faster." Greg hesitated. "What are you thinking?" Ethan leaned forward. "We go straight to Musk, calling in the big guns." Ethan knew Musk didn't like corporate politics. But he also knew something else. Musk hated losing. And Cognos? They were trying to kill a startup under his watch. So Ethan drafted a single, direct message to Musk. "Ethan, we have a problem. Cognos is trying to shut us down before we start. They just raised $30 million and are reaching out to our investors. If we don't act fast, they'll box us out of the market." He stared at the screen, nervous. Would Musk even care? Musk replied. Musk understood. "I'll handle it." Ethan blinked. That was it? Just, "I'll handle it"? He turned to Greg. "Musk just said he'll handle it." Greg raised an eyebrow. What the hell does that mean? They were about to find out. Musk's next move. The very next day, news broke. And it was huge. Elon Musk announces new AI partnership. Neurogrid included in Tesla's Smart City initiative. Ethan's jaw dropped. He read the article twice just to make sure he wasn't imagining it. Musk had just publicly backed Neurogrid. Tesla was now integrating Neurogrid's AI into their urban planning division. Greg let out a low whistle. "That's how he handles things?" Ethan chuckled. "I guess so." Investors flooded Neurogrid's inbox. The company was now untouchable. And Cognos? Their momentum collapsed overnight. Their investors started pulling out, worried that they couldn't compete with a Musk-backed company. Ethan sat back in his chair, exhaling deeply. Musk hadn't just saved them. He had won the war before it even started. The new era of Neurogrid. With Musk's backing, Neurogrid became one of the fastest-growing AI startups in the world. Their funding tripled overnight. They hired top engineers from Google, Tesla, and Apple. Cities lined up to test their smart AI models. And Ethan? He was no longer just a young entrepreneur. He was now being called the next Musk, Ethan's next big decision. A few months later, Greg walked into Ethan's office with a folder. "You're gonna want to see this," Greg said, handing him the papers. Ethan opened it. It was an acquisition offer from Amazon. They were offering $500 million to buy Neurogrid. Ethan's stomach turned. $500 million. Life-changing money. He could sell now and never work another day in his life. Greg sat across from him. "What do you think?" Ethan exhaled. "I think this is exactly what Musk warned me about." Greg raised an eyebrow. "Meaning?" Ethan tapped the folder. "Companies like Cognis tried to kill us. Now, companies like Amazon are trying to buy us out." Greg leaned back. "So what do we do?" Ethan closed the folder. "We say no." Greg smirked. "I was hoping you'd say that." Ethan smiled. This wasn't just about money anymore. This was about legacy. And he wasn't selling. Not now. Not ever. Because he wasn't just building a company. He was building the future. The final message from Musk. That night, Ethan sent Musk an update. "Ethan, Amazon tried to buy us today. $500 million. We said no." A few minutes later, Musk replied. "Musk good? Stay hungry." Ethan grinned. Because deep down, he knew. This was only the beginning.